Well, thank you for joining us for the second part of a marriage series. Can you believe that? A marriage series called Growing Since the Chapel. And it's kind of implies that we, in our marriages, aren't finished products, are we? We really aren't. And the last thing I want to do is come across as some sort of marriage expert, because I, more maybe than anybody in here, knows how much work I have to do. How much growth still needs to be experienced in my life, but really the idea is that we should be growing since the chapel, right? I mean, maybe that's a great question to ask yourself. Am I growing since the day I got married? Am I becoming not just a person who was a good candidate to marry, but am I becoming a person that's worth staying married to? That's a good question as well. And last Sunday, I shared what really I think is at the heart of marriage. It's what the Apostle Paul wrote when he wrote to a group of people in Ephesians. The Apostle Paul talked about marriage, and he talked about, for women, how wives are supposed to submit to their husbands as they do to the Lord. All of us Christians submit to the lordship and leadership and authority of Jesus. And the Apostle Paul says, wives, that you're in a relationship with your husband, submit to him like you do Christ. Not because your husband makes all the best decisions, not because he's the best leader there's ever been, but because I have set this up in the home, and when you do that, you allow your husband to be the leader. And then he flips it up and he says, men, I have some encouragement, I have some instruction and some commands for you. Okay, you're the leader, I get that. You're the person maybe in that authority position, but I want you to use your leadership to love your wife. I want you to leverage that authority to not seek your own needs. Don't make this about you and everything you want to do. Make it about your family as well. And in a relationship where a woman lovingly submits to her husband and a husband self-sacrificially loves his wife, marriage is a beautiful thing. And the Apostle Paul says it. He says, this is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. Marriage is meant to reflect in one way the relationship that Jesus has with his followers. That is the closest relationship we can have. And he just sums it all up and he says, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Okay, that is at the heart. If you forget everything else I say about marriage, you need to listen to those words, because that is at the heart, I think, of what marriage is meant to be. The good news is, again, as we continue, this morning I think we're going to have a lot of fun. At least I will, because I love this particular content that I'm about to share with you. In fact, what I'm going to share with you, a lot of it comes out of the book, Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, 7 Questions to Ask Before and After You Marry, by the doctors here, Les and Leslie. So I want to share with you this content. If you've been around what I do when I officiate weddings, I love to do some form of premarital counseling before I officiate a wedding. I don't know if you want to call that insurance. I don't know. But there's something in me that wants to have couples a little bit prepared before they take that huge commitment that we know of is marriage. And I try to get them engaged in some content. And I go through this book with them. I may not go through all the questions or the length of the book, but I do go over a good part. This is one of the things that I read before my wife and I got married. And this is a great book. If you like some of the things that I share, I would encourage you to buy this book, and it can help you get some more ideas on how to develop a great marriage. But this morning, I want to talk about 2 things specifically from this book: a definition of love and gender differences. It's really hard to talk about marriage and how to have a great marriage or how to grow since you began your marriage without really coming on the same page over what love really is. I've heard it said you live and die by your definitions, and isn't that so true? I mean, take the word success, for instance. However you define success for you, whether it's money, whether it's fame, whether it's influence, I mean, your definition of success could send you in all kinds of different directions. The same is true with love. Your definition of love sets you up in a specific direction. So you and your wife, one of the best things you can do is make sure you're on the same page over your definition. But I also want to talk about what makes us different. Embracing the differences between the two genders. Y'all know this? Men and women are different. Have y'all noticed that at all? There's a little bit difference there. Yeah, there's differences. And I've heard, again, Rick Warren, another minister, said this, before you get married, opposites attract, and after you get married, opposites attack. You get what I'm saying? Like, it was cool when y'all were dating, but now it's like, you get a little bit on my nerves, so how are we going to work this out? Because you're different. So we're going to look at how to embrace those differences, and maybe in some case celebrate those and meet the needs that are specific to your specific spouse. So let me talk about love, right? Love. I mean, we use this word so many times. But you know what? We have so many definitions in our culture over what love means. I mean, you might hear somebody say, I love my children. And then they turn right around and say, I love my puppy. And you're like, well, hold on. Do you love your children like you love your puppy? No, it's a totally different kind of love. But I guess in English, we really only have one word for love. But we use it in so many different ways. Our culture, whether you're a Christian or not, you're going to hear definitions or presentations, demonstrations of what is called love. And we have all different kinds. But think about this. When it comes to marriage, like, what is more important than love? At least in our Western minds, where we don't have arranged marriages necessarily, where, we like a match and we like to, go out and date and we like to see what it really comes down to for us, really, in so many ways, is love. I mean, one of the biggest questions that if you're a parent and you have children, okay, and they're wanting to get married, one of the questions you've probably asked them or they've been asking themselves is, do I really love him or her? I mean, those of us that are married, we would say, yeah, that really comes down to it. I mean, when people break up, how many of you heard this? Well, I just don't know if I love them anymore. I love them, but I just don't know that I'm in love with them anymore. It's a huge question. So what does it mean? What does it mean? We've had so many definitions, but I want to give you one that the writers of Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, they do it based off of Dr. Robert Sternberg. Dr. Robert Sternberg. This guy is insanely smart. He's got, I look, if you Google this guy and see all the degrees and the experience he has, it's amazing. But he came up with what he called a triangular theory of love. Now that's a big definition. It's a big idea, but basically, he described love in three important aspects, and it forms a triangle, which we're going to look like, and I'm going to go through every single part. And let me just be honest with you and say that, yes, I know we have many, many biblical definitions of love, and those are obviously very important, but as it comes to romantic love, this is the best definition. You'll see it in Scripture, but this is the best definition of love that I've ever come across. And this is the definition that I want our married couples, those considering married, those single people. Hey, I'm not leaving you out in this whole thing. If you're watching this and you're single and you think, well, this is a marriage series, it didn't really apply to me. No. Please pay attention. This will help you become a good candidate to get married and, start looking for the right things, okay? So this whole triangle describes that love is not just one thing in particular, it is a mix of things. And I think this catches it, and you'll see why as we go through it. Okay, the first aspect of love, Dr. Sternberg calls passion. Passion. Now this is what we really sign up for in the beginning as it relates to love. This is what our culture, I think, sings about, writes movies, makes movies about the most. This is the feeling side of love, the biological side of love. This is the cloud nine side of love. This is the infatuation. This is the, oh my gosh, you give me butterflies and tractor trailer loads of love and I would swim the ocean to get to you and you're so beautiful and you're so handsome and you're so strong. I mean, this is the exciting, the firecracker, the fireworks side of love that we all want to experience at some point. Okay? And this is good. This is the part of love that kind of makes you a little stupid for a while. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll drive hours, you'll overspend, you'll take all your time and give it to that person because there's just so much passion in the relationship. And we want that even in a marriage situation. We want you to have passion. I think it's great for married couples to have passion. But here's the truth, and this is why it's so important to look at love not just as one thing, but a multifaceted triangle. Love is more than just that passion. Love is more than just a feeling. Love is more than just that spark. And the good news is, if you feel like you have lost that spark, or you're dating someone and you've wondered if you've ever had that spark, the good news is there's more to the story. But let's just be honest and say, if love is just this is a real superficial kind of love. This is what gets me. This is what gets me with secular culture and music. I love all kinds of music. I mean, honestly, there's really not a lot of music I don't like. And I love worship music, but I love country music. I love rock. I mean, I love all kinds of music. And, you know, in the country world, they sing so much about love, but so much of it is this passion side. So much of it is not about, you know, commitment or how much well we know each other. They get to that sometimes, but a lot of it is, man, you drive me crazy. You're hot. You're blowing my mind. I love you. You got my heart just racing out of my chest, and that's great. That's just a part of it. But a person who gets married who only has the emotional side, who only has the feelings, those of us who are married understand that it takes more than just a feeling to have a great marriage. You know that emotions, although they are powerful and urgent and like so huge, they ebb and flow, don't they? They come in waves. There will be moments in a relationship where you are beside yourself. You are on cloud nine. I mean, when I walked out on the stage to get married to my wife, Kayla, it was just mind-boggling to me. It was like I was on a different planet and a different universe. And those feelings, they ebb and flow. Sometimes you're going to feel intense like that. Other times, you may not feel that connected to your partner. You may not feel all those feelings that you felt. And yet, if you hold on, if you continue, if you begin to invest, you'll see it go up again. You'll see love go in and out. But there's more to it. And we're going to look at the other thing to it, okay? So you got passion, intimacy. Now, when I'm talking about intimacy, what they describe in the book is not the kind of intimacy that we typically think. This is emotional intimacy. Okay, this moves beyond the passion. Think about the biological side of marriage being in the passion category, but when it comes to intimacy, what they're really describing here is that emotional connection. This is the feeling of having a soulmate. Right? It's not just, well, you're beautiful or you're handsome and you drive me crazy in a good way and you give me butterflies. This is, I have begun to know you on a very deep level. I have begun to connect with you. I have become vulnerable to you. I've let you know things about me that I haven't told everybody. And you're letting me know things about you that you haven't told everybody. And there's this sort of depth to a relationship. There's this connection that goes beyond the physical. It's something deeply emotional and connected. Now, I think culture still wants this. I think they do sing some songs about this. Maybe not as much. But real love includes this element as well. See, if you have passion, that's great. That'll get you to the chapel. That'll get you to Vegas, and that'll get you, change last name, and you might get a ring. But intimacy, emotional intimacy, will keep you in a bond where you honestly feel close to each other. Intimacy is when you wake up in the morning and you look to the person next to you, and regardless of what they look like in that moment, there's just this feeling of a close bond to know that this is my person. This is the person that I can't imagine living without. There's just something they know and I know about them that connects me together. A relationship without this is so cold. A relationship without this is like the George Jones song, Two-Story House. Yeah, we live in a two-story house, oh, what splendor, but where no love abounds. Because you've got your story, and I've got mine too. And they talk about how sad it is to live in a two-story house, right? Some people may be in there. They still at times have the passion side of love, but they can't talk anymore. They can't connect anymore, and it's a dark place. They're living together. They're still married, but it doesn't have the depth of the quality. Perhaps we should reorient how we celebrate couples. Some people say, well, I've been married for 40 years, and that's like, yes, or 50 years, that's awesome. But that doesn't tell us if they still want to be married or they even enjoy it, does it? I made it, brother. I made it. 50 years with that woman. 50 years. It's almost like that guy who for his 25th year anniversary, this story, he said, I'm going to take my wife on a great trip. For our 25th anniversary, I'm going to take her on an all-expense paid trip to China. The person listened to him and said, well, that sounds pretty awesome. What are you going to do for your 50th anniversary? He said, well, that's actually where I'm going to go pick her up. So, that's a guy who, he had plans, but it wasn't for them to be together. But there's a third side of love. It's not just passion. It's not just emotional intimacy. There's a third side that I honestly feel like our culture is very afraid of. But it's not just secular culture. I think we as Christians were afraid of this. It's that yucky word that we're so tempted and hesitant to buy into. It's the word called commitment. Commitment. Passion, intimacy, commitment. I feel like in today's world, it's easier than ever to not commit to anything. It's easier than ever to get a 7-day trial, a 14-day trial. Now you can test drive cars, right, for periods of time. I mean, it's easier than ever. I mean, even with my cable bill or even with my television, I don't want a contract. Even when it comes to our cell phones. Remember, when you used to, if you signed up with a cell phone company, you had to do that for 2 years. 2 years. You committed your life to pay this bill. Well, guess what? Nowadays, they're doing away with that. So you can just go month by month. And you can switch. And it's easier than ever to pilot something. To just try it for 7 days or a month and see how you like it. And I don't know how much that influences us, but I know that one of the hardest things to come to grips with as it relates to true love is the commitment side of love. True love doesn't just have feelings. True love doesn't just have understanding. True love always includes commitment. And we see this in Jesus. Lord willing, if we get to Easter, I'll be maybe talking about this. But you see it perfectly in the person of Jesus. Jesus didn't just enjoy being around people. Jesus didn't just get to know people on a very deep level. Jesus spread his arms on a cross and his feet and was nailed and was crucified for the sins of the world. He died and was put in a tomb. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what we call true love. And why do we call it true love? Because it included the ultimate commitment. To say, I'm not going to call 1,000 angels to get me off this cross. I'm going to stay here until it is finished, because true love always involves commitment. And you and I think we know this deep down. A marriage or a relationship cannot experience full, true, pure love if there's not commitment a part of it. Now, I'm going to say something that might offend some of you. May even offend some people that are here. I don't know your situation, but I want to be honest with you and tell you that true love, I really believe, involves commitment. So, you may be in a relationship right now. You may be living with somebody that you're not married to and believe that it's not that important to get married because, after all, you've lived together for so long, and how much more could you love each other? Can I tell you, can I encourage you? I'm not trying to just wave a judgmental finger towards you, but I want to encourage you and prod you a little bit and say true love always involves commitment. If you really love each other, get married. If you're afraid to get married, don't tell me that you love each other as much as you possibly can. True love always involves commitment. And for these people that come to me and say, hey, we chose to move in, okay, well, let's get married. Well, I don't know. We'll just try it. Look, people are not like cars. People are not like your Netflix subscription. When you become physically intimate with somebody, it changes the dynamics of the relationship. And when you reject a person or choose to move on because they didn't fit their needs, that's a real person within real hurts with now a real past because of what you did. If you really love them, then let's do it. Let's get committed. And I love it. I love it. I love it when couples who have been living together come to me and say, let's get married, Jordan. Let's get married. Let's do this. Let's get that commitment. Because marriage needs to be a safe place. If you are going to open up yourself and become vulnerable to another human being in ways that you can't with anyone else, you need that safety. You need that security. And that security happens when people are willing to commit to one another. So, passion, intimacy, commitment. Now, here's some really good news. Here's some really good news. This is not a static thing going on. And what I mean is, it's not like you just have a certain level of passion, you have a certain level of intimacy and a certain level of commitment, and it just is what it is the whole time you're married. This is a dynamic system, which means just like there are ebb and flows with your passion, there's also ebb and flows with your intimacy. Perhaps when you first got married, right, there was an intimate emotional connection. I mean, you spent all your time together, you got to know each other, but then you had kids, and then you started spending less and less time together, and then all of a sudden they moved out of the house, and then you're like, okay, well now what? I got to get to know this other person. We were so close, but somehow we drew apart. See, there's ebb and flow to this, and perhaps there's an ebb and flow to commitment. You know, you got committed, you got married, but now, you know, you're starting to experience temptations at work, or you're starting to think about what ifs. There is an ebb and flow to this, and you can work on whatever aspect you and your spouse need help on in the relationship. Just because you might feel like there's no more spark or there's no more passion, you can work to create more passion. It's easier to act your way into a feeling than to feel your way into an action. So start working on that right now. Start working on the passion. If you don't feel like that other person or your spouse knows you very well, you don't have an intimate emotional connection, you can work on that. You can focus on opening up to that other person. You can focus on becoming closer into soulmates. And then commitment. Obviously, if you're not married, you can work on that right now by getting married. You can do that. But if you find yourself or your spouse slipping in the commitment area, you can work to renew your commitments. And it might mean that you renew your vows. Not necessarily because any of you broke them, but it's a great opportunity for you to gather back again and remind yourself what the commitment is that you made to your spouse. Not only that, but maybe you could take a time and remember the commitment that your spouse made to you. It's not just about what you did on that wedding day. It was about what that other person did. That other person chose to commit, to look into a future that was uncertain and declare that day that they were going to love you till death do you part. That's an amazing commitment, and it's worth holding on to. And here's what I would like. Everyone in our churches, that are watching online, I would love for you to adopt this definition of love and understand that it's more than one thing, and you need to have all three. I would love for us to come together. If you're not married, I would love for you to adopt this, to look for somebody that it's not just about the spark, but it's about the friendship, the connection. But also, am I dating somebody who I could commit to? Because I can't experience the full gamut of love unless I commit. So I would encourage you to do that. And for married couples, I would encourage you to adopt this definition so that you know what to work on in your relationship right now. Now, let's talk about the other thing as we kind of head out. Gender differences. Like I said, have y'all noticed, right? Men and women are different. Yes, we are different. Male and female, we're different. We're equal. That's one of the things I like, to talk about, to preach about. We're not less in any gender with value, but we are different. In fact, I've also heard it described that, you think about God. God is a spirit. We refer to Him in Scripture as Father because that's how God chose to reveal Himself and talk to us about. But really, God is a spirit. Although He asks us and reveals himself as a good heavenly Father, he is really a spirit. So really, we're made in the image of God, not the other way around. We can't ascribe our differences to God. God's in his own category, but God put things in men and women, unique aspects of his character. And you see that together, when we come together, we glorify and exhibit all, or at least a significant portion of the attributes of God. I mean, think about men. We're typically known as strong. We can compartmentalize. We can make decisions. We can sacrifice. All of those things. And women are nurturing. They're beautiful, right? You can't just have strength. You need beauty. And together, there's this beautiful picture that displays the image of the God, the loving Creator who made us. But in marriage, we should understand or seek to understand what these differences are and how these differences drive the needs that are specific to our spouse. We're not thinking in the same direction. We don't handle things. We don't have the same perspective. And it's bad, and it's a negative thing in marriage when we just assume that the other person wants what we want, that the other person has the same outlook on life that we do, even though they're a totally different gender. We need to focus on the differences. Now, the authors of the book, Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, they give a good definition. They say up front, hey, this is probably oversimplistic, but in many ways it captures the differences between the mentalities between men and women. This is what they say. Men focus on achievement. Women focus on relationships. Men focus on achievement. Women focus on relationships. Now, you might look at there and be like, Jordan, I know some women who are really into achievement. Yeah, that's true, okay? And you might say, well, Jordan, I know some men who are really into developing healthy relationships. I get that, okay? This is kind of an overgeneralization, but what it sees is, generally speaking, men tend to focus on achievement. We tend to think about the long game. Where is this leading to? Where are we going? Women, have you ever experienced this problem? To say, Jordan, I got an issue with my husband. When we were dating, he was Mr. Romance. He would do so many loving things. He would show up at work. He'd have flowers. He'd write on cards and leave me little notes. He'd go to Starbucks and get my favorite drink that he knows all about, and he would just bring it to me. But Jordan, since we got married, I don't know. It just feels like he changed. Well, can I tell you, he probably didn't change. He probably just sunk back into what it's like to be a man. And what it's like to be a man is that we don't just live in the moment all the time. It's not all just about the frilly things just because. In fact, as a man, I have just a hard time even understanding that idea of doing something just because. As a man, it's always heading somewhere. It's always leading somewhere. Because it's about achievement. It's about the next phase. It's about the next goal. It's about the next mile marker. Now, as a woman, you might listen to that and go, Jordan, that is so cold. That's so calculated. Well, you just have to understand how a man thinks. You do have to understand, women, if you feel like that's a little cold, that, even though your man might be geared towards achievement and geared towards winning somebody, he did choose you. He did choose you, and he had other options. He chose you. He chose that if he could marry you, that would be an achievement into his life. But as men, listen to us, as men, it's so easy. Once you get married, all right, we got married. Pew, pew, we did it. To kind of take our foot off the gas. and all of a sudden, all the things we did that was leading to the marriage, okay, what's the next thing? We think we've achieved it all. Like that guy who said, how many times do you tell your wife that you love her? He said, well, I told her once, and then if anything changed, I'd let her know. So you need to tell her more than that, man. Just because you told her once doesn't mean it's always going to stick. Just because you and I achieve marriage, we get to that point, doesn't mean we take our foot off the gas and we don't pursue our wives anymore. That's not how we love them. But look on the other side. Women tend to focus on relationships. See, with men, one of the first questions we ask is, where do you work? What are you doing with your life? That's basically what are you doing with your life? Okay, but women, it's all about who you're connected to. Have you ever noticed that when it comes Easter, women are going to want to get their families together and take a bunch of pictures, and they're going to want to post them on Facebook and say, look at my tribe, look at my relationships, look at how beautiful everybody is, and look at how we're connected, and I matter to people, and I'm making a difference, and look at my family, right? It's about the relationships. Guys, have you ever noticed this problem? Jordan, when I was dating my wife, she was so much more fun. She was so interested in everything I did. Jordan, she went to car shows with me and she asked questions and she loved it. Jordan, she went hunting with me. I mean, she couldn't shoot for nothing, but she loved it. She was out there. It was like 4 a.m. and she was freezing to death, but she just acted like she loved it. And then after we got married, Jordan, it's like she just wants something else. She wants me to be somebody else. She's checked that box and now she's moved on. Well, can I tell you this? She really hasn't changed. It's just when she was dating you, she was trying to get to know you. Okay? And it may be, and I can't speak for you women, so, maybe I come at this humbly, but it could be that she really wasn't interested in the car shows. She really wasn't interested in the hunting. She was interested in you, big fella. And because you liked it, she wanted to know what made you tick. But after you got married, she wanted a little more in the relationship. She wanted some depth. See, men tend to focus on achievement, and women tend to focus on relationships. They want depth in relationships. And you're like, well, Jordan, you need to tell her. You need to tell. Well, we'll get to some things, okay? Now, gender differences. As we begin to understand how we're different and what we begin to focus on, what happens to emerge is we begin to see that not only are we focused on different things, but we really need different things. We're not looking for the same things in relationships. And so what I want to do, and this is from the book Saving Marriage Before He Starts, I want to give you 3 things she needs and 3 things he needs. If you're married, okay, you've achieved marriage. Great. Some guys never get there. Some guys never are willing to commit, but you did it. All right? It's awesome. All right, now let me show you the next thing. You got married. Now let's get to staying married, okay? And you get to staying married by continuing to meet a person's needs. Okay? Now, women, all right, you got that relationship. But the way you cultivate the depth of that relationship is by helping meet his needs too. It's not just one way, okay? So I'm going to share 3 needs that she has, 3 needs that he needs. Now, let me just say one quick thing before we get going on the list, and you can write these down. These are great things for us to keep in mind. But this side of heaven, a need or even a desire will never be fully or finally satisfied when we're talking about romantic needs, okay? So men, you might feel like, I checked that box. I've done that before. We've been there, done that. That's not how it works, man. I mean, think about it. Do you need to eat? That's great. When you leave here, you're probably going to go to lunch. But you know what? Around dinner time, you're going to get hungry again. Okay? You might have done so many things to meet the needs of your wife. You're going to keep doing these over the course of your life until you get to heaven, and then it's all good. Same thing for the wife towards the men. You might have done these things in the beginning, or you might do a few things here and there. You're going to need to continue this up. It's not just a one and done. When we're here in this earth, because of sin, we run out of gas. Our tanks get empty. All right, so 3 needs she needs, 3 things she needs. One is to be cherished. To be cherished. Women tend not to like to compete. They don't want to compete for your time, Mr. Man. They don't want to compete for your attention. And they don't want to compete for your love. They want to be cherished. She has a deep need in her to be loved and to be valued above all other things. She wants to feel like if you had an opportunity to do so many different things, you would still, at the end of the day, in your heart of hearts, want to be with her, that you cherish, that you don't take her for granted, that it's not just something you did when you said I do, but it's something that you continually do. She needs to be cherished. So men, this is our encouragement, all right? We need to continually communicate to our wife that we cherish and appreciate, and we don't take it for granted, that loving her and being married to her is really the highlight. I mean, even though we achieved it at once, it is a great joy in our life to continue to show her how much we love her. Okay? Here's the other thing. She needs to be known. She needs to be known. You know what men can sometimes say? Women talk too much. You know what women say about men? Men never listen. They never listen, okay? So one talks too much and one never listens. What are we talking about here? A woman needs to be known, and really this is another way of saying she really needs to be listened to. She needs to allow herself to be vulnerable to you in a way that you won't try to fix a problem, but you will accept and validate her feelings, okay? Now, this happens to me a lot, right? Caleb mentioned something to me, and my mind immediately goes to, what is the problem here to fix, okay? You got a problem, yo, I'll solve it, okay? This is how my brain works, okay? You're having troubles at work, okay? Well, let me just figure out how to fix it, and I'll tell you what you need to say to your boss, and I'll tell you what you need to say to your coworkers, and I'll work it all out for you. Can I tell you, 90,000 times out of this story, that's not what Caleb's really wanting. What she's really wanting is for somebody to enter into her emotions, to listen not to the problem, but to how she's feeling about the problem. Because can I give you a little, this is a dirty little secret, okay? Women probably already know how to solve their problems. They probably already know. Can I tell you that, man? You think you're sharing some great idea? Trust me, they already know what they need to do. That's not what they're telling you. They're telling you because they're testing whether or not they can be vulnerable around you. They're letting their emotions slip out, and the question they're asking is not, can you solve the problem, but can you validate these feelings? Can you communicate to me that in my worst moments, I'm not a crazy person for feeling the way I feel, but I'm a real person and I feel what I feel, and that's okay. Women need to be known. So men, one of the best things we can do is get out of the problem-solving mode. Now, sometimes she's going to ask for help, but a lot of times, if somebody doesn't ask for your help, don't give it. If they don't ask for your help in a conversation, then they're probably not asking for your help. They want something else. They want you to listen. And we need to work on that, men. We need to work on listening to our wives so that they feel that emotional connection that we know who they really are. And here's the last thing. They need to be respected. They need to be respected. It's probably different than it is for a man's need to be respected, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But women need to feel like they have a voice, okay? As a leader, maybe it's easier to see this in a leadership context. If you're a boss, if you're an employer, if you're a leader, okay, you might be the decision maker, you might have the authority, but if you continually make decisions without ever consulting your employees, without ever consulting the people that are going to be impacted by these decisions, it does not create a healthy organization. They may listen to you or obey you out of fear or whatever consequence they have, but you won't get their heart if employees don't feel respected. And that is the same way. Men, it might be awesome to look in the scripture and say, we're the leader, she's supposed to submit, but if you don't respect your wife, you will not have her heart. You might have her obedience, you might have her outward support, but you will lose her heart. So what does it look like to be her respected? Men, involve your wife in important decisions. Involve them. Ask their opinion. They probably have better ideas than you have thought of at this point anyway. So you might as well invite them into the decision. If it's going to affect her, if it's going to affect your family, ask what she wants to do. And as many times as possible, give her veto power. Give her veto power. As many times as possible, allow her to, in a conversation, to say, honey, I feel strongly about this, but you know what? It's not a hill to die on. So if you don't want me to do this, I won't do it. If you don't want me to purchase this, I won't purchase it. I'm just going to give you veto power. Now, perhaps there's some times where, as men, we have to make a decision because we're called and responsible to be the leaders of our family. But as many times as possible, you want to empower her and allow her to have a voice. Okay, remember that equal part? You're different, but you're equal. This is how we help communicate to her that she has an equal seat at the table. Now, let's look at 3 things he needs. 3 things he needs Men need more than just food and other things. We need more, okay? What are the things he needs? Real quickly, he needs to be admired. I was thinking of ways to do this and other words, but really what it really comes down to, it's admiration, it's respect, it's appreciation. Men need to have someone clap for them. They need to have someone believe in them. They need to have someone respect them. Women, can I tell you something that maybe you may not know just because there's a gender difference? When a woman feels disrespected, when a woman feels like she's not good enough, when a woman does a task, and as a man points out that a woman didn't do the task and communicates that to her, she may react in working harder to please, okay, and working harder to prove. But when a man feels disrespected, when a man feels like he's not good enough, when a man constantly feels nagged at and somebody keeps telling him over and over and over, you know what he does? He loses the strength to try. He gives up. So a lot of times, women can say this, I've told him time and time again. I keep telling him. I tell him in all different languages. And I would say that's the worst thing you can do for your husband. Because you keep telling him, like just the simple act of telling him is going to motivate him, but that's not what motivates a man. What you need to do is catch him doing something right, and you need to reward that. Listen, this is Andy Stanley quote, what is rewarded gets repeated. What is rewarded gets repeated. If you want your husband to show you more affection, if he does anything remotely affectionate, you need to act like that is the greatest thing he's ever done since sliced bread. That's what you need to do. If he, you want him to take out the trash and he just keeps forgetting it, instead of nagging, here's what you need to do. The moment he does it, you need to act like that is the greatest thing ever. Man, look at you. Because a man feels deflated when he feels underappreciated. A man feels deflated. The wind gets knocked out. But if you can support and provide that need for him, it gives him energy and fuel. Every time you reward him, it gives him incentive to try again. Here's the other need, to have autonomy. Now, this is a tough word because we don't use it a lot. And I'm trying to describe this in a way that we would understand. But a man needs to feel like he's kind of in control or in charge. A man needs to feel like he's off the clock every once in a while. Men, good men, deal with the responsibility in their lives, and that responsibility is a burden. Okay? Women, they may not understand the pressure that men feel to provide for their family or to feel like they're achieving enough for their family. And as a woman, you might not feel that pressure to succeed or achieve. As long as you have the relationships in your life and those are healthy, that's not a big deal. But as a man, you feel that burden. You feel that pressure. Okay? You don't want to stand in another group of other men who are doing something with their lives and you feel like you're just wasting time or you're wasting yours or you're spinning your wheels. And so autonomy is a need that a man has for a wife or a spouse to come alongside him and say, you know what, right now, you just do you. If you need time to go hunting and think about, your life, if you need time to recharge, you just do your thing. In this block of time, you go, play golf or play sports or whatever it is, you just take some time and recharge. Okay? Because so often we can expect men to have a full day at work and then come home and then all of a sudden reorient, switch gears. It's time for family. And a man comes home and he parks and he just sits in the car because he's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm about to walk in. It's crazy. I know it's crazy. I'm going to switch from responsibility to responsibility. And he wants just a break. He wants some time where it's like, you know what? Watch the game in the recliner. Chill out. Now, I know you can't always give him that, right? You can't always provide for that need like you want to, but the goal is not to be perfect in this, but the goal is to be aware of it. And as women, you try to give him as much autonomy as you can. You give him those times where he has mental breaks, where he's not forced to do a responsibility constantly over and over again. And here's the last thing, shared activity. See, women, you remember when you were dating, I said this before, where you love to do the little things, that you love to have him do the little things? And it's like it made it so special when he would just... Can I tell you what he loved? He loved you going to the car shows or going to hunting or going to the ball games and acting like you were interested. He loved that part of your relationship because a man loves shared activity. One of the ways to connect with a man is not just sit him down and want to talk with him. Why do you think men go and play golf? Why do you think men go and do things together, in sports teams? And they love shared activity. In fact, if you want your man to open up, do something with him. Go to a concert or go hunting or do something that he loves. He loves and enjoys that shared activity. That is a need that he has. Okay? A man, even though you might not care for what he's interested in, a man will really like it if you join him and you act interested, or at least you show him that you're interested in him. One of the great ways that I heard a story of this was with a man who took his son to baseball games. In fact, they would go around the nation going to different baseball games. And someone told the father, "You must really love baseball." And he said, "No, I just really love my son." The reason I'm going to all these games isn't because I love baseball. It's because my son loves baseball and I love my son. What do you think that did for that boy? It said, you know what? My dad is interested in what I'm interested in the same way it is. So 3 questions as we wrap up this morning. Which aspect of love, the passion, intimacy, or commitment side, would be good for you to work on? Is there something that's not as good as it could be in your marriage? Well, let's think about love. You need more passion, you need more intimacy, you need more commitment. Which one would be good for you to work on? And then how often do you try to look at things from the perspective of your spouse's gender? Do you always think to yourself, well, I married her. What else does she need? I provide a good house. I provide a good living. What else does she need? Why does she keep wanting me to take time off work? Doesn't she understand that everything our family enjoys is because I go to work? Are you thinking about it from her perspective? Because she needs to be cherished. She needs to be known. And you can't buy your way out of something that she wants to develop in a relationship with time. Okay, maybe it's on the other side. I keep telling him. I keep communicating to him that he's my everything. But he just, I don't know, he's just off in some other world. Well, what is it like to look at life through his perspective? What's important to him? And then which need of your spouse needs your attention at the moment? I went over that list for the women. Husbands, which one do you feel like your wife really needs right now? Does she need to be cherished? Does she need to be listened to? Or does she need to be respected? Does she need to be invited to the decision-making that you might have for the family? And on the flip side, let me ask you women, which thing your husband needs? Does he need more respect or appreciation or admiration? Does he need more autonomy? Does he need more free time? Or does he need you to share an activity with him, to choose to do something he likes, not necessarily because you love the activity, but you love him? If we can think about these questions and we can work on these, I think it would be a great way for us to be growing since the chapel. Let's stand up together and we'll say a word of prayer. We all have things that we can work on. We all have things that we need to do. This is not about being perfect. It's about making progress. It's not about perfection. It's about growth. If you're feeling that you're in a marriage right now where you don't think it's what it used to be, well, this morning, hopefully you've seen some things that you can work on. And I can tell you, if you'll start doing what you can do, what is within your control, you'll be probably amazed at what can change in your marriage. Because people who work on themselves create an environment where everybody wants to do something. Everybody wants to improve. So start growing. Let's bow our heads. I'm going to say a prayer over us and over those people that maybe aren't a Christian. Lord Jesus, thank you for this ideas that we've shared. If there's anyone watching that isn't a Christian, I pray that they ask for forgiveness and salvation based on what you did on the cross and the resurrection. For the rest of us that are here, Lord, I just pray that whether we're married or single, I pray, Lord, that we would get our minds around these two things. What is real love? And then how does the gender differences impact our relationship? So that we can begin providing for our spouse what they need, not just what we need, but what they need, in an effort to not just improve the relationship, but to love them well, to love them with passion, intimacy, and our commitment. And we give you thanks and praise, Lord. Please be with everybody else that needs you in a special way. In Jesus' name, amen.